There is human trafficking occurring at St. Hill at this very moment, and it will continue until government agencies step in to stop it.
Hello, everybody. Good evening and welcome to Saturday Night SPTV live from the UK. I'm Apostate Alex. For those of you who don't know me, I used to be the director of public book sales at the Church of Scientology in London. I now speak out about my experiences and interview other people, give them a platform to do the same here on YouTube. I investigate the UK activities of Scientology in the UK, Europe, and report on them on Scientology Business. And I'm bringing you some exciting news this evening. Tomorrow, Scientology will be front page news in the UK. The Observer, also known as The Guardian, is a huge newspaper here in the UK, and they are doing a huge expose that is available online now, and it will be front page of the printed newspaper tomorrow morning, looking at Scientology's UK Narconon operation. Narconon is one of their front groups. It is a drug rehabilitation centre down in Sussex that was opened a few years ago by our very favourite one and only Councillor Dick Sweatman. So let's have a little look at this evening. I won't be on for too long because, as Danielle Chamberlain is saying in the comments, it is starting to get a little bit late here in the UK. But hello, everybody. Hello, Polkaroo. Hello, Kiwi Girl Eleanor, Awaken H, Nermin, Karen, Auntie Harju, how are you doing? Thank you for joining us. So the link is in the description. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but I will show you. This is The Guardian. So you can see the headline: "My mind has been shattered into a million pieces inside the Scientology-linked UK rehab centre." This article is by a journalist known by the name Shanti Das. Shanti is a lovely lady, and I had the pleasure of speaking to her and working with her over the last couple of months. A lot of people on my channel have been commenting recently to do with the East Grinstead Town Council mayor stuff I've been working on, and a lot of you have been asking, why is the press not interested? Why is there no press coverage? And I just want to remind you guys that good investigative journalism takes time. This article is the result of months and months of work. I first spoke to Shanti back in May of last year, so it's been almost a whole year of her putting this together, doing the research, writing it up, learning about how Scientology operates, and then going through the required legal processes and so on for it to finally go to print in tomorrow's Guardian newspaper. So the press definitely are interested, and this is something that I'm working on and have done for months. So please rest assured the press are interested in everything to do with East Grinstead, the mayor, and this is another thing that has been going on behind the scenes that just came out today. So Narconon, as I said, is a drug rehabilitation centre. Let's have a little look. This is their website, where you can see the building itself, Scientology's own website. This is the UK website, and it's the opening of the Continental Narconon Centre in the UK, ushers in bold new era of drug rehab. This is a few years old. This is from the opening of the new centre, and you can see the celebrations as it was opened, just like an ideal org. We have delegates pictured here. This is the president of ABLE, Association of Better Living and Education, which is basically the head of all the front groups in Scientology over in the US. This is Sheena McLean, who is the registered manager. She's the nurse, supposedly, that's in charge of Narconon in the UK. She is an OT8. She is at the top of Scientology's Bridge to Total Freedom, and she is in charge of the Narconon UK Centre. Here's our friend Dick Sweatman. When he was mayor of East Grinstead Town Council, he was the mayor, and he went and opened the Narconon Centre. And here he is pictured in his mayoral gear, praising about how wonderful the Narconon program is. In fact, this is a quote from himself. The Narconon program is comprehensive and covers all aspects needed to help a person get back on their feet and teach them the tools to stay on their feet and succeed. This is not just a drug rehabilitation center delivering a highly successful program, it is also a training center to enlist Narconon specialists to tackle this drug issue. Here we have a professor from Imperial College London who made an appearance at the opening. This is Diana Code, who was I believe, the president or at least a senior figure in the National Drug Prevention Council. A local councillor, Stephen Tyler. Now, one thing to note, this Narconon Centre is indeed in Sussex, but it's in East Sussex, not West Sussex. So they're out of the jurisdiction of Mid Sussex District Council and East Grinstead and so on. So this is the parish councillor for Heathfield, which is where the centre is located. Some more pictures of the opening. This is the building. It looks rather lovely. This is what it looks like on the inside. It's an old manor house, I believe, that was converted into the treatment centre. Essentially, the program is just like the purification rundown, which is the first step you do on Scientology's bridge. You take extortionate amounts of vitamins, you sit in a sauna for extended periods of time, and you also do some objectives, TRs and objectives, which is a type of Scientology processing. It does look all very lovely. And you can see this building is catered, is set up to cater for 16 students. That's what the maximum they're allowed to take. They call them students, not patients, because Scientology uses that term. I don't know why they chose to call them students. I suppose because they're students of L. Ron Hubbard. Now, officially, Scientology keeps itself separate from Narconon. The way it talks about it is that Narconon is a secular program to help people with drug problems. It is sponsored by the Church of Scientology, but it is not part of the Church of Scientology. And unfortunately, that's a little bit of a lie, because the entire program was written by L. Ron Hubbard and developed by him. No scientific background or backing or evidence behind it. The whole idea is that you take these drugs, these vitamins, and then you sweat out the drugs that are stored in the fatty tissues in your body through sitting in the sauna. And there's no scientific evidence to prove that drugs are stored in the fatty tissues, let alone that you can sweat them out by taking vitamins and sitting in a sauna. It is completely L. Ron Hubbard's teachings. And although they say it is secular and on paper, it may very well be, it's important to note that there are numerous cases of people doing the Narconon drug rehab program and then joining the Church of Scientology. An example of this is Mark Pinchin, who is the Director of Special Affairs at London Org, where I used to work. He's effectively the OSA operative, the guy in charge of OSA within the org. He goes and does speaking sessions at schools and so on to talk about how wonderful Narconon and how wonderful Scientology is. And his story is that he had a drug problem. He went to Narconon, he was reformed, and he then became a Scientologist. And now he is preaching about how great the Narconon program is. That is a clear example of how Narconon is built to turn people into Scientologists, not necessarily help people get off drugs. It is totally a front group and a funnel to get new people into Scientology. But that's not what Scientology say, even though they also kind of do, as evidenced by what Mark Pinchin said. And many, many others. Now, this article is huge. As I said, it's taken a lot of work. Shanti has done a fantastic job, and I have asked her if she wants to come and join me on a podcast, on an interview in the coming days. So fingers crossed she says yes. She also wanted to make it known that this is not the only and final piece that is going to be done about Scientology in the UK. It's very much getting the attention of the national press. And I just want to reassure you guys, this stuff takes time, and the press definitely are aware of what's going on and want to talk about it. So let's have a little look through this article. As I said, I'm not going to read through the whole thing, because if you want to read it yourself, you can. But it starts off here. It's listed on the NHS, that's the National Health Service website, and claims to be a world leader in tackling substance abuse. But there is a shocking side to the Narconon addiction facility, as our 9-month investigation reveals. This is top quality investigative journalism, and this is exactly what we need, especially here in the UK, looking at Scientology and their operations. It's very easy and very quick to get an article in a tabloid Radar Online, the National Enquirer, Daily Mail, those sorts of things are great in terms of exposure. They're quick, they're easy. It's quite a large number of people look at it and gets the eyes on the story that you need. But it's pieces like this that really do start to impinge, to use a Scientology term, on the public as to why this is an important issue, and hopefully governments see it and feel like they have to act on it as well. This longer investigation stuff really delves into the runnings of Scientology, and this is what is really going to make a huge difference in the UK. And I can assure you, this is not the only long piece about Scientology that you guys are going to see in the media in the next month or so. I will tell you more on that later. It goes on here describing about what Narconon is and the facility. It is a registered charity. Scientology itself is not a charity in the UK. It was rejected because it was shown to not benefit the public. But Narconon is a charity, so that means it is tax exempt. It is funded by the Church of Scientology. And as a drug rehab center, it is, overlooked by the CQC, which is the Care Quality Commission. So it's listed on the National Health Service website, and it is marked by the CQC as a good facility. Now, the CQC is the watchdog, so they look after care homes and residential treatment centers, that sort of thing, and they go and inspect and report on how people are being treated at these facilities. Now, Narconon was last inspected in 2016, so that was 8 years ago. It hasn't been inspected since then, and if you look at that inspection, it was actually flagged the last time. There were some major concerns about the health and safety around the water and in the sauna that's used in the sauna, and the how they keep the vitamins in different pots, and there's mix and match, and it's not very well organized. So they haven't inspected in many years. And the reason, as Shanti reveals in this article, is because they registered, they were inspected, and then they filed as dormant. So they haven't been inspected. Now, either that means they are not servicing anybody at this Narconon Center and haven't since 2016, or 2019, I think is when they registered dormant, or they registered dormant and have nonetheless been treating people, which I believe is what this article reveals, that they have registered as dormant but are in fact still treating people. It goes on and on about the process of Narconon and auditing and drills and that sort of thing, and the result, the effect that this has on people. In some cases, they took part in repetitive drills for so long while in vulnerable states due to their mental health or prior drug use that they would go into hypnotic states, become paranoid or break down, or suffer other extreme reactions. After taking part in the drills, which could last up to 5 hours a day for several weeks, others were allegedly left traumatized, feeling this word that we can't say on YouTube, with their minds shattered. One thing that I want to note is that Narconon particularly deals with vulnerable people, people who have been through a lot in their life, that have an issue with substance misuse. This is the typical patient of Narconon is a vulnerable adult, and therefore they need to be cared for in a different way, and particular attention needs to be particular care needs to be taken in how they approach the situation and look after these adults. So Narconon, Scientology are dealing with vulnerable adults, and they're not being regulated because they have filed as dormant. This is a huge failure on the government's part, on CQC's part, to not realize what is going on here. One thing also I want to bring up, if you look on the website truthaboutscientology.com, you can see Sheila McLean, who's the registered nurse. She's the one that oversees the operation of Narconon. You can see all of her service completions, and she is OT8. Now, the center opened in 2016 and is still open today. And you can see she has done objectives, superpower, and the L12 rundown. These are all services that you can only get at Flag over in Clearwater, Florida. She completed one in May 2017, in February 2018, and in May 2023. That means Sheila McLean, who is meant to be running this centre and looking after these vulnerable adults as patients and their care, has been away from the property. She's actually been in America, in Clearwater, at Flag. For I don't know if she was there for the whole time or whether she went and came back and so on. But these are not quick things that are just done as an overnight stay. You know, she has spent extended periods of time over at Flag doing these courses. And that means she wasn't here in the UK overlooking the care of these vulnerable adults. So my question is, who was looking after the patients, these students at Narconon during this time? And does that indicate perhaps they have broken the law? It talks more in this article about the history of Narconon, L. Ron Hubbard, and Scientology. It has 30 centers across the world for substances, alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, any type of drug you can think of that you need recovery from is something that Narconon will claim to help. This article talks to a number of former patients of Narconon here in the UK and how they found it and why they got there in the first place, and how Narconon are actively campaigning. Managers regularly post in Facebook groups for those trying to get clean. The friendliest drug and alcohol rehab in the UK welcomed new program participants in a safe and welcoming environment. Read a recent post followed by a smiley emoji. This is massively concerning that Scientologists are using these groups for vulnerable people to promote their program, which, by the way, costs £15,000 to do and has no scientific backing whatsoever as to whether or not it works. Highly, highly concerning that they have not been pulled up on this, because they need to be held accountable and they are looking after vulnerable people. It talks here about parts of the program are strict. It says here, as is common at some other rehabs, students have to surrender their phones upon entry and cut off contact with the outside world, save for pre-approved calls or visits. That means if something was to go wrong or one of these patients needed help of some kind, their access to the outside world to call emergency services, for example, is limited. I'm sure if they went to reception and said, I need to call an ambulance or the police or whatever, I'm sure they would not be denied that, although who knows. But by surrendering your devices and cutting off from the outside world, you as a vulnerable person have just entered a situation where you are more vulnerable and fully in the control of these people that are supposedly giving you care, that have no medical training or background whatsoever. The people running the Narconon centers are all pretty much Scientologists, volunteers that do not have any medical training whatsoever. They are all Sea Org members, staff members, and apparently there are a couple of volunteers as well. Excuse me. It talks about the program, the high dosage of vitamins you get, 5,000 milligrams of niacin. It talks about how bad niacin can be. It can cause liver damage when taken at high doses. Narconon says safety incidents were very rare, and for most people, the detox does not seem harmful. One participant said this phase was like jail because you're left alone with your thoughts, but it enabled them to rest. Another said the first part of the detox was kind of cool. Interesting. This is just such a fantastic piece. It talks about, it interviews a few insiders as well. One former staff members described the phase known as the objectives as gruesome. There are certain criteria that addicts need to meet, but you are not even told what they are. They can't tell you how long the session will last. It's just touch that, touch that, touch that. It can be any inanimate object. One might be sit down, stand up. This is where we see the shouting at ashtrays and the weird and wonderful things that we have seen before in Scientology orgs. It is exactly the same program, more or less, as you would be subject to if you were to join Scientology and start your way up the bridge to total freedom. This overall is a tragic, tragic story of how people are treated at Narconon, especially here in the United Kingdom. So Sheila McLean here has a duty of care. This is a former patient. They had a duty of care to look after me, but it messed me up badly. I came out worse, significantly worse than I went in. The Observer also spoke to an ex-staff member who described described being left distressed by their part in the process. Although most senior employees are understood to be Scientologists, many junior staff and volunteers are not. Despite having no history of substance misuse, they too were required to complete the program. It's just the I can't suggest more that you guys should read this. I'm struggling not to read the whole thing out from beginning to end, but there are quotes from experts here. There's a professor and a doctor here, medical director of drug and rehab and alcohol charity Turning Point, and it really clearly shows how this is a worrying program that is being carried out. Here's a picture of our good friend Janet Laveau. Janet Laveau is the commanding officer of OSA, the Office of Special Affairs here in the UK. She is the one who is in charge of all of the dirty tricks, the PR, and all of that stuff for Scientology in the UK. She is currently listed as the managing director of the Church of Scientology UK. She is also on the board of trustees of Narconon, and she is pictured here. And this is probably the best picture I've seen of Janet. She made an appearance at the protests that we did in November outside St. Hill. And she is quoted over in Ireland when they were trying to open a new Narconon center there. And she went on a PR tour trying to defend the program and how wonderful it is. So it is very clear that there is a link here between Narconon and Scientology. Several senior Narconon figures are Scientologists, including Janet Laveau, who's the managing director, as I just said. It's called out. She's called out here in the article. Shanti has done a fantastic job. You're helpless there, and the only way out is blind submission or lose thousands of pounds, one person said. If I'd have had any concept of what the program actually was, I would never have signed up. To independently verify their claims, an Observer reporter approached the facility posing as the relative of someone needing treatment for addiction. During the call, a representative said Narconon was based on work by Hubbard, whom she described as a humanitarian who founded Scientology. But she went on to claim that Narconon was not related to the religious movement. Narconon is basically a secular organization that is it's not related to the Church of Scientology, she said. So this is what I mean about investigative journalism. They sent people in undercover to have conversations with these people and report on what is actually going on there. This is fantastic, and this is just what we need. They obviously contacted Narconon for a statement, and it says here, they replied saying they have a proven track record of successful rehabilitation of substance addiction. And it talks here about the GP, that's the doctor that you have to get a sign off from before you can do the program. But nonetheless, they hold them to account. McLean, Narconon's registered manager, said it was deeply regrettable that some people did not get on with the methods the program employs. Even the best run services have their critics. Now, that's a really interesting quote because that's almost an admission, right? Scientology is such a totalitarian extremist belief system. All of their PR is Scientology is the best thing ever. There's nothing like it. If you do it, it will work. This is it. And anyone who disagrees is wrong and a bigot and all of this. It's interesting here that their response was actually to say, yeah, look, some people didn't agree with the program. They're not admitting a failure. They're not admitting it doesn't work, but they are saying it's deeply regrettable that some people didn't get on with it, which I think is an interesting take because I haven't seen that very often in Scientology's PR. Perhaps most concerningly, The Guardian here talks about the fact that 19 complaints about Narconon have been received by the CQC, the Care Quality Commission. However, the CQC has not formally investigated 14 of those 19 complaints received in the last 5 years. The CQC claims it has no duty to investigate and that the complaints are outside its remit. Well, my question here is whose remit does it fall under in that case? The treatment of vulnerable adults for drug problems. It is a drug rehabilitation program. It is considered as alternative medicine because it's based on theory and no scientific evidence, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be regulated, especially considering that it is a stay-in, live-in program. You go there, you live, you sleep, you eat, you cannot leave until you finish the program. So the CQC say not our problem. Well, whose problem is it? This is so similar to the reaction that we are getting from the East Grinstead Town Council and the Mayor Fraser Visser when he has responded to criticism in recent weeks about his relationship with the Church of Scientology and the safeguarding of vulnerable adults and children, particularly at St. Hill in East Grinstead. Asking questions like, what are you doing to safeguard individuals? What are you doing to help people and prevent the suffering of vulnerable people? And he is saying, not my problem, not our remit, not the council's job, someone else's job. It is absolutely disgusting that nobody is willing to hold their hands up and say, hey, that's our job and we're accountable and we messed up, but we're going to change it. It's just disgusting that this is the reaction a lot of people, a lot of that we are getting to a lot of these allegations. The CQC report did not include any details of the psychological drills or mention Scientology, so the CQC definitely gave it a stamp of approval, but they looked solely at the care of the patients and didn't look at the program itself, which is not actually under the CQC's remit. They just look after the caring and how these vulnerable adults are looked after. But it doesn't actually look at the trauma that the psychological processes of the Narconon program actually instills on its patients. It is harmful to put a vulnerable adult through these processes, and that is just completely missed in all of the CQC reports. One former patient said here that it left him in a dark place. He had a history of severe mental illness, including psychosis and depression. It left him feeling pressured and increasingly paranoid until he eventually suffered what he describes as a psychotic episode. And since leaving, he has received professional help. Looking back, he believes he should not have been admitted at all. It was even noted on his entry form that he was emotionally unstable, but he was accepted anyway. If Narconon's program is able to continue running unchecked, he fears others may be at risk. I think they prey on people at their most vulnerable. So, guys, please go and check this article out in The Guardian. There is a link down below. Shanti Das is an amazing journalist, and it's been a pleasure working with her over the last couple of months. This is definitely her project. This has been her article. She's done all the investigation, but I was very pleased to have a small part to play in this, having spoken to her and pointed her in the right direction and explaining processes and stuff to her as to how this stuff works. And it is just one of many things that I've been teasing about over the last couple of months, where I keep saying stuff's going on behind the scenes, I can't talk about it yet. This is one of them. You know, May last year is when this began, and it's only now coming to fruition. As I mentioned earlier, there is more stuff in the works, and this is not the only thing that you're going to see from major press outlets about Scientology here in the UK in the next few weeks. So do keep your eyes out on it. What I think is important to address as well is that Scientology are definitely going to be feeling like they're under attack at the moment. You have Diane Abbott requesting a fraud investigation into their finances with HMRC. That's one strand. You have me pushing the mayor and the council and their infiltration and influence over local government. That's another PR flap for Scientology. And now we have Narconon as well. Those are three very different subjects and very different angles of attack that Scientology are having to deal with and fend off right now. And trust me, there's more. So I am definitely not going to be on David Miscavige's good list in his good books right now. And I'm sure he's going to be paying very close attention to what's going on in the UK, because they are under fire. And I think it's just right that they are. You know, they need to stop their abuse and treatment, horrible treatment and harmful treatment of vulnerable people, adults and children. Let's not forget the Narconon program is not for children, because it's for drug addicts that generally are adults. However, the program, the purification rundown and so on is delivered. The same program is delivered in every Scientology org pretty much in the world. And that is something that you can do even as a 5-year-old, as a 10-year-old. So the same treatment is happening in every city where Scientology operates, and it is ultimately harmful. And that's what we need to focus on. So that's my little ramble over. Let's look at some of these questions. Thank you to everyone who's joined in the comments and join me for this live stream. Kirsty Lawrence, let's see if the mayor has any comment. I bet he won't. Well, if he does have a comment, it's not in my remit. It's not to do with the council. It is in a different district. But it just goes to show that this is an important matter. And one of the things I said to the council was, this is a local matter that has national significance. And they kind of laughed it off. And I said, no, trust me. And this is an example of that. Narconon is not under, the centre is not under East Grinstead's jurisdiction. However, East Grinstead Town Council's actions and their enabling of Scientology to continue to operate in East Grinstead allows Narconon to happen in a different district and allows them to continue with their harmful practices. So this is why it's important that East Grinstead Town Council address this, because it's a local issue that has national ramifications. EduCon, very interesting to see Observer doing some cult investigative work. It's not normally their best, probably after the Graham Baldwin libel trial. It's definitely something that they are interested in and something that they have been working on. You know, The Guardian have been huge supporters of this movement. They were at the protest in November. They published a huge piece there about it, which is fantastic. This is another piece that's been in the works for several months, and I'm sure it won't be the last. It is a great sign that the national press and journalists are not scared of Scientology. They're not backing down, and they know that the legal threats are empty. They're just threats. And Scientology would have a real hard time suing any of these newspapers because they don't have a reputation that can be damaged. They cannot say, oh, this is libelous or defamation, because in order to be defamation, you need to prove that you had a reputation to be damaged in the first place. So I'm glad that journalists like Shanti Das are taking Scientology head on and reporting on this stuff. Jerry, by the way, did you notice it's on #1 of their most viewed article list? Yes. Now, when we did the protest, that was in the top 10 most read articles on The Guardian, and this is currently #1. And that's really, really huge because I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's 100 or 110 million viewers that The Guardian gets on its website every month. So to be #1 article and to be front page news tomorrow, I think is key, and that shows that there are eyes, there is interest, and that it's being taken seriously. Ron, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Hi, Alex. We support you. Keep up the great work. Thank you. And I will indeed keep fighting. And this is, like I said, one of many things that's going on right now. If you want to support the channel, by the way, please buy me a coffee. There's a link in the description down below. YouTube take 30% of all the super chat money and that sort of thing. So if you want to help financially, buy me a coffee is the easiest way to do that. And press that like button as well while you're here. Danielle Chamberlain's in the house. Thank you so much for joining me. Hi, everyone. Good to catch a live on time, late as it is. Yes, I will be wrapping up shortly. Des Star question, is Criminon a thing in the UK? Could it be investigated? Yes, Criminon does exist here. It's not as big as Narconon in terms of they don't have a big center, and it's not a huge, I think they've got a couple of small premises, but there was a legal case a few years back that involved Criminon. Criminon, for those of you who don't know, is the rehabilitation program that Scientology does to try and rehabilitate criminals. It goes into prisons with the Way to Happiness program, and again, it's another front group. It does exist here. It's not as prevalent, but there was a legal case where that was front and center, so I should probably do a video on that soon. So thank you for bringing that up. Matt, how you doing, buddy? Have a read through their documents on Companies House. It's very eye-opening. Yes, this is one thing to consider. As a charity in the UK, all of their accounts are almost entirely open. You have to be accountable because you are tax exempt. You have to show exactly where your money is going, where it's come from. So Narconon has definitely got some interesting figures that we can look at in another video as to how they're how they're operating in the UK. And one of the key things that I found out is that there was £100,000, I think it was, donation from the Lycett Family Trust. The Lycetts are a family that I used to know very well. They used to work at London Org. I used to work with Steph and Hannah. I actually stayed at their house in East Grinstead several years ago, and we'll be talking more about that in the future for sure. Doc Lee UK, what have East Sussex and West Sussex done to Scientology to have them on their doorstep? This is really, really important. I want to make it so clear, right? I have nothing against the people of East Grinstead or Sussex. I think East Grinstead is a lovely place. I think Sussex is wonderful. I think it's a shame that their image internationally now is being tainted by the presence of Scientology in their town, in their village, in the area. I think it's really important to address this Scientology issue on a local level, because I want East Grinstead to be a thriving and a successful town, because it is lovely. It's a great part of the world, and the majority of residents are not Scientologists. So why should they have to suffer from the effects of having this human trafficking, money laundering cult in their town? That's why I want to try and petition to have this looked at and taken seriously by the council, so that they can free up more time to spend running the town and looking at real local problems and looking after the residents and what they need, without having to worry about this controversial group operating in their town. Vault Digger, Alex is certainly not effing around, and that is very true. I've been ending my videos with this statement a lot recently, and I really do mean it. This is an example of it. So guys, thank you so much for joining me. I will keep you updated. There's lots more to come in the next few days, so keep your eye on this channel. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon so you get notifications whenever I go live. Press like, leave a comment once the video's over so that it helps push it out to more people. And if you're in the UK, go and buy a copy of The Observer, The Guardian tomorrow, Sunday, and keep a clipping because I think this will be one of many articles to come. And it's going to be a landmark point in the bringing down of Scientology in the UK, I hope, at the very least. But thank you so much for joining me, guys. And as I always say, I'm on war footing, and I am not fucking about.
Hip, hip, cheerio!
Scientology's got to go!
Hip, hip, cheerio!
Scientology's got to go!
The abuse has to stop! The abuse has to
There
stop!
is human trafficking occurring at St. Hill at this very moment, and it will continue until government agencies step in to stop it.
I'm angry, real angry.